Imagine a room full of life, laughter rolling over the tables, plates clinking, waiters weaving through a maze of chairs, the jukebox. In the corner hums a tune everyone knows but no one is really listening to. It feels safe. It feels normal. Then a small voice cuts through all that sound like a thin line of light through a heavy curtain. "Daddy," she whispers, tugging on my sleeve. "Daddy." That woman looks scared. I turn. Across the room near the bar, a young woman stands with her back to the wall. Two men lean in too close. They are laughing, not the kind of laughter that invites you in, but the kind that pushes you down. The woman shakes her head. Her mouth forms the word no. One of the men reaches for her arm. The other blocks her way, and at every table around them, forks lift and fall. Eyes drop. People pretend nothing is happening. That's when I know someone has to do something, and that someone is me. But a few minutes earlier, none of this existed for us. A father and his daughter were only having dinner. Daniel sits in his usual corner booth where he can see the whole room without being seen. Across from him, 10-year-old Emily sits with her legs swinging above the floor, sneakers never quite touching the tiles. Her plate of macaroni and cheese is half finished. She taps her toes to the soft rhythm of the jukebox like a little metronome that keeps the night steady. For Daniel, this is peace. No candles, no fancy music. No need to dress up. Just a warm meal, a safe corner, and the bright face of his daughter. He does not need more than that. "Look, Daddy," Emily says, balancing a noodle on her spoon like a tightrope walker. She holds her breath, chin tucked in, eyes narrowed in serious focus. The noodle wobbles, slides, and tumbles back onto the plate. She gasps, then bursts into a giggle as if she herself has fallen and bounced back up. Daniel smiles the way he only smiles for her. "That's some impressive balance," he says. "Maybe I should sign you up for the circus." Emily leans forward, grinning. She lowers her voice like she's telling a secret. "Only if you play the clown, Daddy, you'd have to wear the big shoes." He laughs. Not loud, not showy, but deep. The kind of laugh that loosens the chest and makes the eyes soft. Around them, the restaurant keeps moving, but their table becomes its own little island. He takes a slow bite of his burger. It is not special food, but something about sharing it with her makes it taste like the best meal of his week. He watches her the way men watch the ocean, calm and full, waiting for the next wave of a smile or a thought or a question. Since raising her alone, time has changed its shape. Days move faster. Moments feel heavier. He can feel her childhood slipping like warm water through open fingers. It makes him hold on to evenings like this with both hands. Emily props her chin on her palm and studies him with those clear eyes that always seem older than 10. "You look tired. Daddy?" He brushes the thought away with a soft smile. "That's because you wore me out at the park," he says. "You run faster every week." She sits up straighter. Proud. "Not faster than you." He does not tell her about the ache in his knees or the long hours at work, or the way the days sometimes fold into one another. To her, he is strong. To her, he is steady. And he wants to be the picture she carries in her head. Around them, the night stacks itself in ordinary layers. The clink of ice in a glass, the sizzle from the kitchen window, the soft sorry as a waiter squeezes past a chair. Someone laughs too loud at a joke that wasn't that funny. Someone else checks a phone and sighs. A couple in a booth share a milkshake. A family near the door tries to keep a toddler from escaping under the tables. The room has a pulse. Gentle, living, safe. Daniel reaches across and brushes an invisible crumb from Emily's cheek. "Eat a little more," he says. "Then maybe we'll share a dessert." Her eyes brighten like a switch flicked on. "Ice cream?" He nods. "Ice cream." She takes a new bite with fresh energy, as if the word itself gave her fuel. She starts telling him about art class, about how her teacher mixes colors and how the paint water looks like rainbow soup by the end. She explains it with her hands, making circles in the air. He doesn't just hear the story. He watches the joy behind it. The way her eyebrows jump when she remembers a detail. The way she pauses to find a word and then snaps her fingers when she does. "Did you ever paint like that when you were little?" she asks. "I made a lot of mess," he says. "That's something like painting," she snorts. "That counts," he smiles again. It is a small thing, this conversation. But small things are what hold a life together when big things try to break it apart. For a while, the world is simple. Emily eats. Daniel chews. The jukebox plays a tune that keeps its distance. Then the air shifts. It's small at first. A pause in Emily's voice. A sudden stillness in her hands. Her fork stops halfway to her mouth. Her eyes slide past Daniel's shoulder toward the bar. The bright line of her attention turns into a wire pulled tight. He knows this look. Children do not pretend. They do not build walls around what they see. They point. They tell the truth. And they tug on your sleeve because they believe you can fix what is broken. Daddy, she whispers again, softer now. That woman looks scared. Daniel turns his head. The woman by the wall looks like she tried to leave and found herself trapped inside the shape of the room. Her hair is pulled back, but a few strands have worked loose and stick to her cheek. Her eyes move quick, scanning faces for a landing place for someone who might meet her gaze and answer. No one does. The two men in front of her are not shouting. They do not need to. Their bodies say enough, shoulders forward, chests open, legs placed to block. One leans close and grins. The grin has edges. The other chuckles and glances around like the room itself is in on the joke. The woman says no again. It is a small word and soft, but it is also a whole sentence. It is a wall. It should be enough. It is not. The first man's hand lifts. It looks casual, like reaching for a salt shaker. It is not casual. His fingers brush the sleeve of her shirt. The second man shifts to the side and cuts off her escape. Daniel feels it in his stomach first, a hard pull, like the floor has dropped an inch. He looks around the room. He wants to see the brave person who will stand up so he can stay where he is, keep his daughter safe, finish their dinner, and pretend life is always this simple. He doesn't see that person. He sees a man at the nearest booth pull out his phone and stare at the screen like it holds a door he can step through. He sees a couple lean together and whisper, eyes pointed down. He sees a waiter freeze with a tray in his hands and look toward the kitchen for someone older who isn't there. He sees 3 different people notice and then work very hard not to notice. Silence can be noisy. In a room like this, it roars. At their table, Emily's small hands curl into fists. She does not know what to do with her fear except hold it tight. Why isn't anyone helping her? She says. It is not anger. It is not blame. It is a simple, honest question. Daniel breathes in and lets the air out slowly. His jaw finds a new shape. He has seen rooms like this before. Different walls, different lights, different languages, uniforms, orders, nights that turned on a single choice. He learned then what hesitation costs. He did not forget. He looks at Emily. Her eyes are on him, steady and trusting. She has already reached her answer. If no one else moves, her father will. He nods once, more to himself than to anyone else. He does not want to fight. He does not want to make a scene. He wants to show his daughter the world she deserves to live in, the one where good people stand up even when it is awkward, even when it is hard. Especially then. He lifts his napkin and folds it with care, like a small ritual before something important. He sets it on the table. He takes one more glance at Emily, reads the worry in her face and lowers his voice to a tone she knows means promise. Stay right here, sweetheart. Her lips part. A protest forms and fades. She nods. Her fingers grip the edge of the table as if the wood can keep her steady. Daniel slides his chair back. The soft scrape is swallowed by the restaurant's noise. He stands. He straightens without drama. He takes a step. Then another. He does not rush. He does not creep. He moves the way a person moves who has already made a decision and has no need to announce it. As he walks, the room begins to notice him the way a field notices a gathering storm. Heads tilt, voices lower. Eyes follow without meaning to. He passes a table where a boy stops chewing and stares. He passes a woman who presses her palm flat on the tablecloth and watches as if she is rooting for him in secret. He passes a waiter who steps aside, gives him space, and finds his breath again. He reaches the edge of the bar and pauses for half a heartbeat. Not to think, not to doubt, but to measure the space. The woman, the men, the angle of his body, the line from where Emily sits to where he is now. He places his folded napkin on the counter, a simple, ordinary gesture in a moment that is anything but ordinary. The young woman's eyes flick to him. In that tiny movement, he sees something change. A flinch of fear, a spark of disbelief, and then the smallest flare of relief. The room has given her nothing for minutes that felt like hours. Now it gives her one person. Daniel's face is calm. His shoulders are loose. His hands are open at his sides. When he speaks, his voice is not loud. It does not need to be. Let her go. 2 words. Straight, heavy, final. The first man turns, annoyed, like someone just stepped on his line in a play he was enjoying. The second man smirks as if to say, this should be funny. But beneath the smirk there is a thin thread of doubt, because the man in front of them does not look like a fool, and does not sound like one. Daniel shifts his stance, not to show off, but to give the woman a path. He angles himself to shield her without caging her. He keeps his eyes on her, not them. He lets her see that he is here for her. Across the room, Emily's whisper follows him even though he does not turn back. Be careful, Daddy. He hears it. He carries it. He lets it anchor him where he stands. He does not think about being brave. He thinks about being the man his daughter believes he is. He breathes once more. And then, with the whole room listening for what comes next, Daniel takes the final step toward the bar. Daniel's last step lands beside the bar. The room doesn't go silent, but the sound changes. It tightens. It listens. 2 men turn to face him. Their smiles are thin now, like paper that tears if you pull too hard. The young woman's back is flat against the wall. She's breathing fast, eyes darting, hands held close to her chest as if she's trying to make herself smaller. Daniel's voice is steady. Let her go. The taller man squints, annoyed. Buddy, mind your own business. Daniel doesn't rise to it. He shifts his stance, 1 foot a bit forward, shoulders loose. He angles his body so there's an open lane at his side. A clear path the woman can use if she chooses. The gesture is small, but it says everything. The second man leans in, chin up. And if we don't? He asks, trying to sound amused. His jaw is tight. Daniel's eyes move from one face to the other. She said no, he says. That should be enough. Behind them, a waiter sets down a tray a little too hard on the bar. Glass clinks. People at nearby tables go still. The room feels like a held breath. At the corner table, Emily grips the edge with both hands. She can't hear each word, but she understands the posture, the line, the choice. Her whisper follows Daniel even though he doesn't turn around. Be careful, Daddy. The taller man gives a short, sharp laugh. He wants the room to side with him. He wants Daniel to flinch. Neither happens. You think you can tell us what to do? He snaps and lunges. His punch is wide and drunk with confidence. Daniel shifts half a step, just enough, and the fist cuts through empty air. In the same breath, his hand catches the man's wrist, turns the joint, and guides the arm down and across. Momentum does the rest. The taller man stumbles forward, meets the table's edge, and goes down in a crash of plates and flatware. Shards skitter across tile like startled insects. Gasps bloom around the room. Chairs scrape back. Someone curses. A child at a booth yelps and then is pulled close by a parent's arm. The second man grabs the nearest chair by the back and rips it off the floor, raising it as if it were a weapon he's practiced with. Daniel steps in before the swing. His palm strikes the chair leg, knocks it offline. The chair clatters to the floor. The man's balance opens his center, and Daniel fills the space with a short elbow to the chest. Solid, controlled. Air shoots out of the man's lungs in a rough grunt. Daniel hooks an arm over the shoulder, turns his hips, and guides him down. The fall is hard but clean. The man hits the floor and stays there, trying to remember how to breathe. From the first punch to the last thud. 15 seconds, maybe less. The taller man pushes himself up from the rec table, staring at Daniel like the ground just tilted. Rage tries to gather in his face, but it has lost its place to stand. He points a shaking finger that doesn't mean much anymore. Daniel doesn't chase. He doesn't flex. He only stands, balanced, calm, eyes on the woman. You're safe, he says. Quiet enough to feel private in a crowded room. The woman's shoulders fall a fraction, as if someone removed a heavy coat she didn't know she was wearing. Her eyes blur. She blinks hard to clear them. She doesn't trust her knees yet. On the floor, the second man rolls to his side, coughing. He squints up at Daniel and mutters, half to himself. He fights like he's military. The word moves through the tables in a fast whisper. Military? Is he? That explains it. Maybe it does. Daniel doesn't answer. He doesn't need a label. The taller man finds his feet, grabs at his sore wrist, and bares his teeth. You're dead, old man, he spits, but the line comes out thin. He takes half a step and stops when he notices how many phones are pointed his way and how little sympathy he can find in any face. Enough, Daniel says, voice low, more door than echo. The word closes the space between what just happened and what will happen next. A manager arrives, wide-eyed, breathing too fast. He looks from the broken plates to Daniel, to the woman, to the men and back, trying to pick a place to start. Sir, ma'am, are you okay? Should I, do we need... He gestures everywhere and nowhere. Call the police, Daniel says. Not a threat, just instructions. The manager nods and bolts for the phone. Daniel takes a small half-step back to widen the woman's path again. He keeps his hands open and relaxed, palms easy. Can you move? He asks. It takes a moment for the woman's body to accept that it can. She nods, places a hand on the bar and slides along the wall toward the space Daniel opened. When she clears the men, her breath finally deepens. Relief stings her eyes. Thank you, she says, the words small but strong. Daniel dips his head. Sit, he tells her softly. Breathe. The second man gets to his feet, unsteady and smaller than before. Shame is heavier than anger. It makes him sway. The taller man stares at Daniel, then at the door, then at the room, searching for a way to rebuild his pride. He doesn't find one. A murmur rises around them, the sound people make when they need to say what they saw to believe it happened. He barely moved. He just put them down, like he knew where everyone was. Like training. Emily can't sit anymore. She slides from her chair and threads through the maze of tables until she reaches Daniel. She wraps her arms around his side, small, fierce, certain. That's my dad, she says. Not loud, true. The taller man opens his mouth, closes it. The room is not his. He can feel it. Outside, a siren starts small and grows louder, riding closer on the wind. The front door opens and 2 officers enter. Steady steps, clear eyes, hands easy but ready. The restaurant exhales. Daniel lifts his palms just enough to show he's calm and steps aside so the officers can see the picture. The woman, seated now, breathing better. The broken table. The 2 men. The line of witnesses up and down the room. One officer approaches the woman and lowers her voice. Are you all right? The woman nods, tears bright again. She glances at Daniel and swallows. I'm okay. The other officer looks at the men. Stay where you are. The tone is polite and iron at once. They obey. Who called? The manager. Someone points. The officer's eyes settle on Daniel for a beat longer than on anyone else. Sir, were you involved? Daniel nods once. They crowded her. She said no. I asked them to let her go. One swung. I moved him. The other lifted a chair. I took it down and set him on the floor. No one else is hurt. The officer studies his stance. You trained? Daniel's answer is small. Once upon a time, he says. Navy, the word doesn't need volume. It travels anyway. Heads nod. Not because the Navy makes a man right, but because the room already decided what was right. The officers split the work. One takes brief statements from nearby tables. The other confirms with the staff. It doesn't take long. The truth stands on its own legs tonight. The men try a few half-claims and cut off excuses, but the story they want won't stand up. Daniel kneels slightly so Emily can hear him without the room hearing. You okay? He asks. She wipes at her cheeks with the back of her hand. Surprised to find tears there. You didn't even look scared, she says. He almost tells her the secret. That fear was there. But it had a job. Keep him sharp, not still. Instead, he gives her the peace she can carry now. I knew what mattered, he says. That's enough. She nods and presses closer. He rests a hand on her shoulder. Not holding her back. Holding her near. A young waiter brings water, hands shaking just enough to splash a little over the rim. Daniel doesn't take it. He gestures for the woman to hold it herself, to feel the weight and choose the sip. She drinks. The tremble in her hands eases a notch. Thank you, she says again, clearer now. You didn't even know me. You didn't need to be known to be helped, Daniel replies. You said no. Someone should have listened. The sentence hangs like a lantern over every table. People look at one another. A few look down. A private decision settles in more than one chest. Next time, we move sooner. The officers guide the men toward the door. When the cuffs click, the room doesn't cheer. It steadies. Night air slips in as the door opens and closes. The siren outside fades into a thin memory. What replaces it is a different kind of quiet, the clean kind. For a moment, no one knows what to do with their hands. Then a single pair of palms touches. Another joins. Then another. It builds, not like a sports cheer, but like a thank you. Measured, honest. Daniel doesn't wave it off and doesn't drink it in. He nods once. Gratitude for the staff who called, for the woman who's all right. For the daughter who just saw courage in simple shoes. He turns to Emily. "Let's get your jacket," he says, that familiar soft tone that resets the world. He helps her slide into the sleeves, smooths the shoulders with 2 small pats she's felt 1,000 times. Across the room, the young woman stands. Her friend has arrived. Before she leaves, she looks back. She mouths, "Thank you," one more time, steady now, not shaking. Daniel gives a small nod. "Go well." The manager approaches, careful smile, hands rubbing together. "Sir, your meal is on us tonight." His voice carries a hope that this gesture closes a circle. Daniel almost refuses. Then he sees the kindness for what it is, a way for the man to make the night make sense. He nods. "Thank you." He still slips a tip under a saucer near the ruined table, a quiet thank you where the mess was. He takes a slow look around the room, staff moving again. Diner speaking in lower tones, a busser gathering white plate shards into a bin. The picture, once broken, is finding its frame again. He looks down at Emily. She looks up, eyes bright, cheeks still pink, hand warm in his. "Ready?" he asks. She squeezes. "Ready?" They turn toward the door and begin to walk. Conversations ripple behind them. Some are retellings, some are small vows. As they reach the entrance, Daniel glances once more across the restaurant, the lights, the tables, the corner booth that is theirs. For a second, he sees the evening as 2 stories laid side by side, one of laughter and macaroni and a joke about a clown's big shoes, and one of a woman who said no and a room that finally learned how to hear it. He opens the door for Emily. Night air brushes their faces, cool, clean, quiet. They step outside together. The door swings shut. The noise dulls to a hum. What remains is simple. A choice made, a lesson witnessed, and a girl who has seen the kind of strength that doesn't need to be loud to be real. They head down the sidewalk hand in hand, toward the car and whatever the night is still willing to give. The night air met them like a calm sea, cool, quiet, honest. Behind them, the restaurant's noise faded into a soft hum, swallowed by distance. Daniel and Emily walked side by side, their hands joined, their shadows stretching long beneath the streetlights. For a moment, neither spoke. Silence said enough. It carried the sound of the crash, the fear, the courage, and the calm that followed. Emily glanced up at him, her voice small but curious. "Daddy, were you scared?" Daniel looked ahead. The street was calm now, the sky washed in faint silver. He waited a moment before answering. "Yes," he said softly. "A little. But fear isn't bad, Em. It helps you stay awake. It only gets dangerous when you let it drive." She tilted her head. "So you didn't let it drive?" He smiled. "No, I kept my hands on the wheel." That made her grin, a tired, proud grin. "You always do." They reached the car. Daniel opened her door first, as always. Before climbing in, Emily looked back toward the restaurant's glowing windows. "Daddy, everyone saw what you did." They clapped. "You were a hero." Daniel shook his head. "A hero is someone who does what's right when it's hard. That's all. Tonight it was just my turn." "But nobody else moved," she said. He nodded slowly. "Maybe next time someone will." That's how it starts. She thought about that, then smiled again. "Like dominoes, but the good kind." "The good kind," he echoed, shutting her door gently. Inside the car, it smelled faintly of crayons and bubblegum, the scent of childhood. He sat for a second before turning the key. Headlights lit the road ahead. The hum of the engine filled the small space between them. "Do you miss it?" Emily asked after a while. "The Navy, I mean." Daniel smiled faintly. "Sometimes. I miss the people, the purpose. But the mission didn't end, sweetheart. It just changed its shape. Protect who you can. Help when you should. Stand when it's hard. That's still my job." Emily rested her head against the seat. "And mine?" "Yours?" He looked over, smiling. "Yours is to keep believing people can be brave," she yawned. "That sounds easier." "It's not," he said. But it matters more than you think. They drove through the quiet streets. Storefronts blinked out one by one. Houses pulled their lights closer, keeping the night soft. The rhythm of the tires on the road was steady, like a heartbeat, like peace returning. At a red light, Emily spoke again. "I didn't like when everyone looked away," she said quietly. "It felt wrong." Daniel nodded. "That's how you know it is. If something inside you says this isn't right, that's your heart asking you to stand." She looked out the window. "I'll remember that." The light turned green. They moved on. A few minutes later, they turned onto their street, trees bending over the road like gentle guards. The world here felt lighter. Daniel parked, shut off the engine, and for a moment they just sat in the stillness. "Daddy," Emily said softly. "Yes, Em?" "Tonight you were my hero." He turned to her. "And tonight you were mine." Her eyebrows rose. "Me, but I didn't do anything." "You did," he said. "You saw." "You spoke. You reminded me what I needed to be." That made her smile. A quiet, glowing kind of smile. The kind that fills the heart more than applause ever could. They stepped out of the car. The neighborhood was half asleep. Porch lights flickered. Crickets worked overtime. A breeze rustled the trees. When they reached the door, Emily unlocked it with the small silver key she was so proud to carry. Inside, the familiar warmth wrapped around them. The smell of home-cooked dinners and laundry soap. The small mess that made a house real. "Teeth in pajamas," Daniel said, pointing down the hall. "Then bed." She nodded, halfway laughing, halfway pretending to protest. As she disappeared into her room, Daniel stood by the window looking out at the quiet street. The world outside was calm again, but something inside him still hummed, a steady reminder of the promise he had made long. Ego, protect who you can, help when you should, stand when it's hard. That was all. That was enough. He turned toward the hallway just as Emily returned, barefoot in pajamas, hair still messy from the day. "Daddy," she said, "remember in art class I told you how the paint water looked like rainbow soup?" He chuckled. "I remember." "It reminded me of tonight," she said, serious now. "Messy, but still kind of beautiful." Daniel's heart caught. He crouched down to meet her eyes. "That's a good way to see it, Em." She smiled, then wrapped her arms around his neck. "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, sweetheart." She slipped into her room. The door clicked softly behind her. Daniel stayed still for a while, listening to the quiet. He turned off the lights one by one until only a warm lamp glowed in the kitchen. He looked out the window again. The same street. The same silence, but tonight something felt different. Not in the world outside, but in the small one inside this home. He whispered to the dark, not needing anyone to hear. "Strength isn't about what you can do. It's about what you choose to do. When no one else will." The words drifted like a prayer. He smiled, turned off the lamp and let the night fold around them, safe, calm, unbroken. And down the hall, a little girl slept soundly, dreaming not of heroes, but of courage, quiet, steady, and close enough to hold.